Hello, happy Homebrew Wednesday. Today I'm going to be tasting the William Younger XP that I made, that's about 4 or 5 weeks ago. So it's been in the bottle for 2 weeks. This will be the very first one I've had from this batch. No idea if it's carbonated properly or not, so quite excited. So it is Chevalier malt, about 6 kilos, and a whole load of East Kent Goldens. I'll put the link to the recipe again down below. Finished up with 5.2. Bit drier than it's supposed to be, but I find that every recipe I try and follow, I get a wee bit of over attenuation. So, yeah, a little bit of smoke. I don't expect this to be clear in any way, shape, or form. The last time I made this, it took about 8 weeks until it finally poured clear. But there is a lot of hops in it. Yeah, not too bad. There. Murky as anything. But that's fine. Last time I had it was like this for 3 or 4 weeks. Got a little bit lighter. Then, as I said, went clear about 8 weeks in. Yeah, like stone fruits, the nose, nectarines. Decent head on it. Don't know if you can see it. It's very, very creamy. The Timothy Taylor Landlord clone that I've made, not done a tasting video yet. I've given it another few weeks. Even after 4 weeks, it's got zero head retention, not much in the way of carbonation. Carbonated in the same way. This is one carbonation drop per 500ml bottle. Anyway, cheers. It's a big smack in the face of bitterness in this. I think it's about 150 IBUs, something like that. Dry finish. You get that fruity hit right at the start, maybe a little bit floral. That's a cracking beer. I really like that. It's maybe a little bit more. I don't like saying harsh because I think that sounds a bit overly negative. But it has got a bit more of a bite to it than the first batch. And I wonder if that's because this finished a little bit drier. Um, First batch also left in the fermenter for an extra just 2 or 3 days. I gave that 5 weeks. I gave that 3 weeks, and I gave it a smaller dry hop as well. I gave it half an ounce of EKG. This one was, I think this was in the fermenter for 2 weeks when I added the dry hop of a full ounce, and I left it for 3 days before bottling. Um, Cracking carbonation on it. It's just right. Yeah, I could drink a lot of that. I would love to try this on cask. But yeah, East Kent Goldens, Fuggles, British hops in general, I think the traditional varieties, you don't really think of them as that fruity, but when you just hammer it with this truck, hundreds of grams in, they do. That's for me. That's more enjoyable than like a beer made with tons of citra or things like that. This is really pleased. Really, really pleased. Bit of lacing. Yeah. I did add Clarex, which was to reduce the gluten, which would reduce the chill haze. And I did get kettle finings that got Protoflock or Whirlflock or whatever it was. But I think that haze is pretty much just solely from the hops. It's like 100 odd grams at 70 minutes, 100 odd at 60, and 100 odd at 30. It was quite a lot. But I had an issue with bottling day. I lost about 3 or 4 litres. Dodgy seal on the tap in the bottling bucket, which disappointing. Still got a reasonable number, but not as many as I would have liked, especially considering that's one of my favourites. That's between that and Hefeweizen. Although my last few batches of Hefeweizen I've not been super chuffed with. But that's, yeah. I've gone on about this time and time again in previous videos, but it is a brilliant recipe. And I love that Edinburgh Ale yeast. Yeah, I don't think any of the fruitiness there, I don't think is coming from the yeast. I feel it's quite clean. The fruitiness in this is just coming from that full on assault of hops. Yeah, and I've used the Chevalier malt a few times now for various recipes. I'm wondering if the Chevalier, or if I'd use Maris Otter as well, if those have better head retention qualities than Golden Promise, which I used in the Timmy Taylor Landlord clone, because it's just got nothing. You know, you're pouring from about this height to try and get any head on it, and it disappears within a matter of seconds. Cracking. Really, really good. That was the first time using the new fermenter as well. I was a little bit worried as when it came to bottling, then I opened it up where the Krausen ring at the top, sort of blacky bluish tinge, kind of mixed in with the Krausen, and I was worried that was like maybe residue or a reaction with any sort of machine oil that was left on the fermenter, which I was annoyed at, because I mean that had been soaked in sugar soap, trisodium phosphate, twice. It had been soaked in Chem Clean, which I think is the equivalent of PBW, and it had been before all that as well, it had been scrubbed with good old fashioned fairy liquid and scalding hot water, and then finally Star as you would normally use. So I thought if anything was still on the fermenter after all of that, I don't know what I could have done to have shifted it. But no, there's nothing untoward in the taste there. There's no metallic flavours. When they say there's any issue with the head retention, that'll get better with a little bit more conditioning. This is only 2 weeks in the bottle. drink that all night. Really good. So yeah, very pleased. I mean, I had crap efficiency in the mash, as I oft do. But it's not the end of the world. I think I'm just going to alter the profile I use in Brewfather to take account of the shit efficiency I get with the Grainfather. Because it's consistently poor, which I suppose is something. So maybe I can just, make allowances for that. I think anything else. I've not brewed in a few weeks. Possibly make a Hefeweizen on Sunday, and if I don't do that, I'm going to make some brewers in vert sugar and film that. So I've got a few bags of raw Demerara sugar, and I'll use some lactic acid to then invert, and then hopefully not scorch it or burn it, because I'll be using that in the Fuller's X recipe I'm going to do at some point in the future. So I thought I'll make, I think I've got like 5 kilos of sugar. I'm going to make a lot in one go. It's it seems like it's a lot of effort to make for just one beer, so I was maybe going to try and make like a few kilos in one go, vacuum seal them and store them, maybe keep it for a few months. If anyone's that watching has ever done this before, leave comments if you know how long it will last or how long it will keep if it's kept airtight. Another thing I was maybe going to do is at the end or just before I'm hitting the colour I want, is to put the temperature up to, I think it's called a hardball. So you heat the sugar to a level that once it cools, it'll go like hard toffee. Because that would make it a little bit easier to store. Definitely easier to vacuum seal. And also, if you know, do you put it in the fridge or would you keep it outside the fridge? I'm inclined to say to keep it outside the fridge, just in a cupboard, out of sunlight, because that's where you would keep sugar and that's where you would keep syrup, and if it's an airtight bag, it shouldn't be an issue. Anything else? A few random bits and pieces have arrived. I'm going to be making a sort of sprayer for inside the big mash tun. Wait for another couple of bits and pieces. And this is... I really should just measure things. I ordered some perspex that I'm going to cut down and use to make sort of little roof over this, because this was all bad planning on my part, because when we got this installed I didn't think about condensation. So what happens in the winter, I have this on, this is cold, the steam coming off condenses on the grill and then drips on top of these, which is less than ideal. As you can see, my previous attempt at making this slightly safer was just put white silicone everywhere. So now I'll put a little cover on, white silicone everything over the top of that, and then if it drips onto there, that's fine. I can just clean that up at the end. Need to get something new instead of this. It's not long for this world. It keeps breaking, and I've been lucky the last couple of times. I can just, there's screws at the bottom here. Just you unscrew that, the plastic bit comes away, and there's the electrics and the terminals. And I just find the wire and the connector that goes to the heating element, and just crimp it as hard as I can, and that seems to bring it back to life. But yeah, It's not ideal. I mean, if things go wrong, or if they go slightly wrong, it'll blow the electrics. If things go badly wrong, it'll blow me across the room. So, yeah, that needs to be addressed at some point. I'm still planning to properly move to the 3 vessel. Been keeping my eye on the Brew Builder website, but they've not been getting any of the high end pots in for China at the moment because of the cost of shipping. So I'll just keep my eye open for when they start bringing things in once shipping costs get a bit more sensible. Which it could be a while yet, but still got the Grainfather, which I either use the Grainfather for the full brew day or for the bigger beers where I'm using this mash tun. The Grainfather's my boiler. Although I'm incredibly jealous of those people that've got the G40. For as much as I have complained and whinged about my Grainfather, which a lot of it's just user error, it's just me being shit, the G40 does look a nice bit of kit, but at a ridiculously high price. Yeah, I think if there was a G40 in here, it would double the cost of the shed. So yeah, that's not something that I'm still fully intending on doing a proper 3 vessel system. So the next thing is a boiler, and rather than replacing the big mash tun anytime, the plastic mash tun, because it is fine, there's nothing wrong with it at all, and I will continue to use that. The HLT I made, but I need something bigger. It just wasn't big enough. It was a pot I already had, and I was doing nothing else with. So I made it into an HLT with a Helms coil. More to see if I could do it. And I could. But it is only like 30 odd litres. It was a pot I got when I started brewing. So I didn't do all grain when I started brewing, as most people don't. But I also didn't do kits. I done full boil extract, which was great. I made some fantastic beers, but it just was ideal. So I think MD's cured it. It's just, instead of doing the tins that I've already got, like hop extract and with the malt, you would get 2 tins of liquid malt extract, or you could do it with dry malt extract. And say like a muslin bag, you could also do some of your speciality grains and crystal and things. So big pot on your stove. It's more difficult in Britain than it is in America, because in Americans have these massive hobs that even like a 30 litre pot is dwarfed on. But nail flat, the big pot over to the gas burners, bring it up to what would be mashing temperature, then a muslin bag with speciality grains, dump that in, leave it for half an hour to an hour, fish it out. I'll give it a rinse with a boiled kettle, not at boiling, like let it boil it, let it cool to about 70 or 80. It doesn't need to be exact for that. Don't even need to do it, but I like doing it. So I'd give that a quick rinse, and then you'd bring it to the boil. You would add 2 tins of liquid malt extract, and when it came to the boil, you would add your hops in for a 60-minute addition, or if you're doing a 90-minute boil, your 90-minute addition, and just like that. And I liked that because it gave me a little bit more control than the kits you can buy, but it was still easier than all grain, infinitely easier, because you're not worrying about the mash. So I'd done that for between 5 and 10 brews before I started doing before I got the Grainfather and done all grain. But I think if I was to start, if I was a new brewer, yeah, starting with kits is probably the most sensible option. At the time, I just fancied trying it. Uh, yeah, it definitely made the best Hefeweizen. That was 250 grams of crystal cara wheat, and you would do that in the muslin bag, let it steep, rinse it, bring it to the boil, and then 2 tins of Cooper's liquid malt extract, wheat liquid malt extract, and like I think it was about 19 grams of Hallertauer for 90 minutes. I think I still done a 90-minute boil, which on reflection now seems pointless. But that made the best Hefeweizen I've ever made. WLP 300 yeast. That was. I tried Mangrove Jack's dried Hefeweizen yeast, and to this day, that's the only beer I've ever put down the drain that wasn't infected or anything like that. It was just shit. It was tasteless. I also had a friend that took a load off my hands. Just hoping to bring me back the bottles, but yeah, it was. Yeah, I've seen some people really like the Mangrove Jacks Hefeweizen yeast, but for me, it just lacked any sort of flavour. It was neither phenolic or estery or just yeah. And especially since I'd done it for it was Dunkelweizen and just fizzy alcoholic liquid, devoid of flavour. Yeah. But anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a meandering ramble at the end there. So that's what's coming up. Either Hefe Brew Day or the invert how-to video. Although saying it's a how-to when it's the first time I've done it, I think it's a bit of a stretch. I've also still to do my 5 favourite bits of brewing equipment after Jimbo's Jimbo Homebrew, a very good channel. Put the link in below. After his video, I thought I'll do a lot of one of those myself. Although it's very difficult to think of things that will be unique. I think there'll be a lot of overlap in what everyone does. But yeah, that might be out in the next couple of days. I'll just come out to the shed tomorrow evening and do that. But yeah, for now, cheers, and I'll see you later.